And so making sure your product and services are, of course, as good as they can be, and you get the training and you get the resources you need is critical. You should be your own harshest critic. You should be the one who is really looking to make sure it's right every day. But we had a great experience, like our second year. We went to visit a bakery that we loved in Greenwich Village called Sullivan Street Bakery. And this guy's like super cocky, you know, and like baked in cowboy boots, and was just he's just doing so well in this little itty bitty spot in Greenwich Village. And he's burning his bread, and I kid you not, he's serving burned bread. It tastes really good, but it's burned. And we're like, man, how did you learn how to do what you do? I mean, did you go to a baking school? Did you hire a fancy consultant? Like, what did you do? And he goes, you know how I learned how to be such a good baker? And we're like, no, how? And he goes, I baked a lot of bad bread. So you gotta bake a lot of bad bread. That's part of what business is. And you gotta pick yourself up, and then you gotta figure out what you did wrong, and then you gotta move on. Marketing is the same thing. It really is trial and error. I'm wearing our Detroit Lovers shirt, which has become our super popular campaign. We sold thousands of these shirts. It just happened randomly. I did some Valentine's Day campaign. I said, let's focus on our love of Detroit and blah, blah, blah. And then pretty soon we couldn't keep these in stock, and so that becomes a big part of our brand. So you're constantly evaluating what's catching on, and it isn't necessarily the things you think are the greatest, but you're paying attention to what the customers, what's resonating with the customers. Of course, now online, it's so great to have all these evaluation tools because you can see how many click-throughs, how many Facebook hits. That's all great, but at the end of the day, you gotta know what's selling and what's not. But the most important evaluation tool that I've learned is open book management. So who here has heard of or read the book, The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack? So I highly recommend it. It's a little thicker than this, but not so thick as this. This guy is a business owner who actually worked for a business that failed, and then he and some of the workers bought the business, took it over. And he was a big sports fan. And so here's what he says. He says, if you're playing football and there's no scoreboard, there's no end zone, and no one knows the rules, it's really hard to get people to run really, really fast and throw the ball hard. And so like in a business, a lot of times as business owners, we're running around, we're all stressed out, cost of goods are too high, oh my God, our sales were really low last week. Nobody knows what even we're worried about. So we have a scoreboard for everyone to see, and everyone in the bakery knows costs of goods sold plus labor, ingredients plus labor equals cost of goods sold. And everyone knows what it needs to be for us to be able to cover our bottom line. And it goes up every single week. We know how much bread, we know how much sweets, we know how much wholesale, we know how much retail, and that way it's totally transparent. So we share the stress and we share the glory. It isn't only used though for financial. You can also gauge other things, like let's say you're working on number of on-time evaluations. And so you might say, we only had 50% of our evaluations on time this month. Next month it's 60%, next month it's 70%. So you can gauge a lot of different things. So you got your vision, you got your values, you're evaluating. So in like 2003, we're like, cool, we got it. We figured it out. We kind of accomplished our goals. Now what? And so at that point, we have to revision, because business is the art of the possible. We're constantly reinventing ourselves if we're doing our job well, and I think we've heard some interesting examples of that actually today. So we worked with our staff in 2003 to project a strategic plan that took us 5 years out. I'm not going to share my entire strategic plan with you, don't worry. But what I would like to do is share the vision that our staff helped us create. It said, bread is the staff of life, a symbol of health, sustenance, and everyday revolution of the spirit. Avalon International Bread seeks to bring these metaphors to life through the act of making your daily bread. It is our highest aspiration that every person's life is enhanced, inspired, and in some way healed by their interaction with Avalon. This includes employees, customers, vendors, and members of the immediate community. Moreover, we seek to act in ways that affirm our interconnectedness with the living planet and all its beings. In this process, we become whole. So we had to continue to look ahead, continue to change our vision. It has to be somewhere we haven't arrived at yet. I think we're probably good for a while on that one. Because our reality is always changing. After I had my first child, I remember saying to my dad, you know, it's not that the bakery's become less important, but something else has become way more important. So at that point, we adopted open book management, we recommitted to zero waste, we decided to really focus on quality control, and we hired the right professionals to help us make the next move. I am really indebted to one of the founders of Zingerman's. I'm not a stockholder in Zingerman's, you must think I am. I'm not. I'm a competitor. But one of the founders of Zingerman's is Paul Saginaw. He is fondly referred to within the company as the CSO, the Chief Spiritual Officer. And Paul and I didn't know each other, we knew of each other, but I called him because Ann and I had gone through a personal shift in our lives, and we were about to go through this huge expansion. And I went to Paul and said, I need you to help me figure out what's the right structure for this business. And I brought all our financials and our strategic plan. Paul wouldn't, he listened, I cried, of course I cried. He was cool. And then he goes, all right, we're not even talking about the business, I got homework for you. Go home and write your vision for your life in 5 years, what do you want it to look like? And I was like, oh God, this is something really hard, and it was. And by doing that, he helped me realize, and because you also have to realize if you're the right person to take your business to the next level. In my case, I realized I wasn't. And this was a good time for me to focus on the other things in my life that I'd really been interested in. And Ann was. And so she retooled her life to become the CEO and to take us to the next level. So the Avalon revision now is that we have the same vision and values. We're going to have a new manufacturing facility in a neighborhood that has not been developed at all. We're going to have new retail in Detroit. We're going to have new partnerships that are going to provide more jobs and more resources and hopefully extend the Avalon vision to a larger number of people. We also recently, just last week, got named one of the 50 Michigan businesses to look out for. And I think they meant that in a good way. I'm not sure.